I will just now take the opportunity to welcome excellencies, friends, members of the order, all you who have gathered here today. And especially, I want to welcome those who are joining for the first time. This is a very special topic, special to the heart of any person of faith, but specifically very, very important to us as members of the order. It is the cradle of our work, and it's an area that should know and understand the great work being done in our name. And we are fortunate enough to have a group of people who know and love this region and can share with us the special situation there. And especially, I would like to warmly welcome a guest and dear friend of the order, Ambassador Khouri. He's the ambassador from Jordan to the Order of Malta, as well as many other entities. Currently, he's joining us from Rome in the Embassy of Jordan. And with that, I will just give you a little bit of housekeeping, which I apologize for. We have muted everyone except for those involved in the program. If at any point you have a question or wish to intervene, you have the opportunity to unmute yourself, or if you have a problem, don't hesitate to just hit the chat function at the bottom of your screen and you can ask a question, or if you have Emily's secret email, you can always email her with a question, but we're happy to try to get everybody in. The reason that we chose to make this a group presentation on the Holy Land isn't because we could have easily filled 1 hour with each of our distinguished guests, but we felt it was really important that we provided a context and an overview of the region and this impressive body of work that the Order of Malta is involved in. I hope that you'll take the time to look at a map today and just remind yourself of the intense geography that we're talking about. But without any further ado, I think I will just jump in. The way we're going to approach this hour we spend together, and I'll apologize in advance. We've been very strict on timekeeping thus far in our series, but we may go over today, in which case I fully understand if your schedules don't allow, and we will say hello and goodbye without any worry. But we hope to have an enjoyable time together this morning, and thank you again for being part of this. Ambassador Michele Bowe is going to begin. As most of you know, Michele has been in her position for several years as ambassador, but importantly has also been involved in the Holy Family Hospital for years. We all know well that hospital, but I think Michele is going to really give us some context for the region, for the area, the deprivation face there, as she represents the Order of Malta there. From there, we'll move to Jordan, and then on to Lebanon, and then assuming time allows, we'll be able to get everyone in for their questions. Like Verena already got her question in, which was wonderful. So with no further ado, I will ask my dear friend and colleague, also a member of the board of the Global Fund for Forgotten People, Michele, to take the floor.
Good morning. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to join us to hear about what's going on in the Holy Land. In Palestine, things are quite complicated from the COVID-19, from the economic fallout, and just from the geographic isolation that it suffers from. Gaza is, of course, a separate strip, and it has no connection to the rest of Palestine. The rest of Palestine is largely contiguous, other than East Jerusalem. And so it makes it a difficult country in terms of moving people, moving capital, moving goods, and finding employment. Things became even more separate during this COVID-19 crisis when the COVID-19 virus was found in Beit Jala, which is in the Bethlehem governorate. And so Bethlehem was completely, as a governorate, isolated from the rest of Palestine. No one could enter and no one could leave. And even street by street was closed down. You couldn't even leave your quarter. So it was a very troubling time to have total curfew, lockdown, quarantine, pandemic, and then of course the ever-present occupation. The lockdown resulted in about 90% of the people of Bethlehem no longer receiving a salary. And so the stores were giving people groceries on credit. And it was a very difficult situation. On June 10th, the health ministry thought things were very contained. Bethlehemites did a wonderful job of quarantining themselves. In Gaza, they went into isolation places when they came back. So the COVID crisis was handled quite well. So on June 1st, things opened up. But the reality is that if a restaurant opens up in Bethlehem and 90% of the people have no salaries, no one can go to the restaurant. The hotels are still not open. At Holy Family Hospital, the budget was greatly impacted by families not being able to pay at all for their care. And during the 3 months of closure of Bethlehem, non-essential medical care closed all of the clinics. And so people could only come to deliver babies or to have a baby put into the neonatal intensive care unit. So the lack of patient income, which is a small amount that we ask the patients to pay when they can, the hospital didn't have. And of course, having 30% fewer services during that time has created a $600,000 structural deficit, which we addressed in a very difficult way, which was to cut all of our employees' salaries by 18%. And that was a heartbreaker because families who were already supporting 6, 8, or 10 sort of nuclear family, grandparents, maybe a disabled brother, all of a sudden were supporting another brother and his wife, a sister, you know, another set of grandparents. So it was really quite a hardship. At the end of 3 months, we just decided that we couldn't continue to do that to the employees. There they were on the front lines of the medical field, exposing themselves to COVID in a country where there is not a lot of medical care for brand new diseases like this. There's very few incubators and things like that. So that was quite a challenge. Until the pilgrimages open up, I think it will continue to be very difficult for the economy there. I just don't see how there's going to be a change. The government of Palestine is not in a situation where it can be supporting the citizens through some sort of a COVID payment like other governments have been able to do. And there's some ongoing tax issues with the Israeli authorities and the PNA, which is further restricting the amount of money that's available to Palestine. Now, the last I heard, John Rowinski and his faithful crew is trying to have a pilgrimage, or is planning to have a pilgrimage in January, and the red carpet, I promise you, will be laid out for you. It will be such good news, and it will bring such joy to the people of Palestine when you arrive. I think everybody will just be elated. And I just want to read you one little thing that was sent to me from the CFO at the hospital when we voted that we could no longer keep their salaries at an 18% reduction. And it's actually a huge leap of faith because we just don't know where it's going to come from, but we just can't do that to the employees. So she wrote, Yesterday night, I informed the employees regarding paying full salary in June, and that the board guaranteed that one day we will hopefully be reimbursed for the lost salaries over those 3 months. They were all so thankful. Today, the employees were all smiling, even flying, and the walls of the hospital were smiling too. You can't believe how good it was today. All those hard 3 months we went through were erased in a second. Thank you. All caps, lots of smiley faces and lots of exclamation points. So that's just a little snapshot. Our mobile clinic is heading back out into the desert on a daily basis. Our clinics are open. And we are really just moving forward on faith because the people of the greater Bethlehem region just don't have money to contribute toward their care.
Thank you, Michele. It was such a stark but important update on what's happening, and as ever, a very uplifting hope for the future, and with the great stewardship of the Order of Malta there at the hospital, and the support of so many associations for the great work there. I just think it's a remarkable thing to hear about, and thank you. We'll definitely, you've done such a good job at sort of tackling my questions, including on behalf of John Rowinski, to get an idea of when things might be reopened. I'm going to quickly move now to our Jordanian team for an update there. I think that I briefly introduced Ambassador Khouri to us. He's our special guest today. He is a career ambassador and has held leading governmental positions in strategy formulation. There's no better person to help us understand Jordan's role as a major host to refugees in this area. He's joined by our confrere, Luca Ravati, and Ambassador Lorenzo Borghese, who most of you know. Both of them wear a number of hats in the order, and we've heard from Luca on the work that our entities in Italy have been doing to address COVID. In this instance, he's wearing his hat as an advisor to the embassy in Jordan. And with that, I will your Jordanian team and Ambassador Khouri. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Simpson. It's a great pleasure and honor for me to address this distinguished group of people who I've never met before, but I've heard a lot about, definitely. Some of my dear friends here are of great help to my country and to the cause of helping people in the Holy Land. I won't take long, but I would like to start by saying that the Holy Land at large, and Jordan as my country, has been going through difficult times over the last, I would say, many years. We've been plagued with wars in the region. We've been plagued with many waves of refugees across the board, and Jordan has gone through difficult times, receiving refugees in the millions from Palestine, as well as from Iraq, and the latest, of course, from Syria. All made economic development of the country a big of a problem. What we are facing now, and if you allow me to connect to what's happening in Palestine, is that COVID-19 actually brought all plans of development and change and growth into a halt. In fact, it took us back to times of very, very sad and difficult economic realities. My country is host currently for 1.4 million Syrians, who are almost 21% of the population. And you can imagine the impact that such a huge number of people who left their country for safety is having on our social services, on our health services, on our at large, I would say, economic well-being. It was difficult, and COVID-19 definitely froze all plans to have some financial resources injected into more and more service sectors that help refugees as well as the less fortunate and the poorer segment of the Jordanian population. We've been working with the Order of Malta for many years, of course, but the last year, I would say, carried a lot of more ambitious projects to the future. We've been looking together into copying a very successful Lebanese experience, and that is creating a friendship association of the order in Jordan, so that it becomes the platform to assist the ambassador and the organization in delivering projects as well as assistance services to the country and to the needy. We've been talking about plans for health service to refugees as well as I said, to the poorer segment of the population. We were talking about social services to children, health services and maternity segment. We've been talking about also even looking into the elderly service and support in the country. The problem is that now everything is, as I said, put on hold, and global movement has been frozen for 3 months. We don't know when things will go back to normalcy. But as the case it is in Palestine, we've faced lockdowns, as in other countries, of course. We faced lockdowns. We've seen shrinking economy. We've seen people losing their source of income, thus adding more people to those in need. Of course, the majority of the population are young, as it is the case in the Middle East again. And this gives you a clearer idea of the problems that are going to ensue as we move ahead, hopefully out of the COVID-19 crisis. The refugee population in the country is definitely getting our utmost attention. It is getting the attention, of course, of many international organizations and organizations like the Order of Malta and Friends of the Order, who are trying to help. But I can promise you one thing, the numbers are huge and the need is really massive. And whatever we can put together to assist those who've faced war and migrated to safety, as well as those in need in the hosting communities, whether they are children, whether they are elderly in need of assistance, or mothers, or other segments of the society and the population. How is this going to play? We have all our fingers crossed, and we hope that we can do something soon enough with the order and see projects materializing, and we see results on the ground so that we can move on extra phases. The government is very much welcoming the support of the order, again, as I said, many years, and we are now being simply more ambitious. Hopefully we can put this into motion, and I will be more than happy ever to answer any of your questions now or afterwards, or to, if you wish to raise up an issue or another, I'm always at your disposal. Thank you very much again for having me and giving me the opportunity to address this great group. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. I think that we all know conceptually about what's happening in the region, and with Jordan, but hearing it from someone with your level of knowledge and involvement brings it home in a way that that really helps our understanding, and I think will drive our planning as we think through the Order's role. The best person to take us in that direction is Ambassador Lorenzo Borghese. He is, I know, I think that it will be very interesting to hear now how the Order is viewing the situation you described. Lorenzo?
Yes, thank you very much. Good morning well, good afternoon to everyone. Yes, actually, Ambassador Khouri pointed out the global difficulties that Jordan is facing. And just on a very short personal side, I came to Rome on the 24th of February, and I was never able to go back. So not because there were no flights. And Jordan stopped immediately. They were very, very quick in taking action over COVID-19. So for us, that meant a large stop, an enormous stop. The programs that we have started not only thinking about, but putting in on a financing level have been partially financed. But still, we can't use that financial, the finances to start them out. So most probably we'll be starting in September. The two programs that I would like to point out are very interesting. And as Ambassador Khouri, we did, we looked into the good friends in Lebanon, and we are starting a daycare center for the elderly at the outskirts of Amman. And that will be very interesting because it will be the first of its kind. And of course, being the first of its kind, we're quite happy that the Order is doing it. And that will help us out. It will be a farm. So we will be taking a farm and making sure that the elderly will not only have a day of, but they will be able, even as in Lebanon, to do outside activities. The other program that we will be starting for sure, being financed partially even by a global fund, so thank you very much, Lisa, for it, is the diabetic mobile clinic. And that will be started as soon as we can. And if you think Jordan has 43% of the population that has diabetes, that's big, the country on, the first country in the world with such an incidence of diabetes. I'm going into a little bit of detail just to have you understand why we're doing this. Because the social and financial impact of a diabetic patient is extremely high when he is a conclamated diabetic patient. That means kidney problems, eye problems, retinopathy, ulcers, and so on. So the idea of this program is to be able to intercept patients that are in the very, very beginning stage of diabetes by going around the country with a mobile clinic, and that way they can be treated on a very, very simple level by pills, just to make one example. So the financial burden for the government will be extremely low. So these are the two. Then we have another two programs that were supposed to be financed by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Italy that of course have been stopped by being an institution, a governmental institution. So we hope that even those two programs will be picking up. By the way, one of the two is for Lebanon, and they're very, very important on the financial level. So this is our goal for next year, I would think, because this year went the way it went. But we really are pushing a lot to make sure that the order has certainly a position in the social society in Jordan. I have to apologize, but our line here is going, it already collapsed 3 times, and Luca went on the other side to make sure it's working. So he's not here anymore. He was here. But as Ambassador Khouri said, I'm ready to answer any questions you may want to point out. But yes, we are very, very confident because we have the help, the great help, both of the government and of the royal family. They're both very glad that the order is starting up some activities in Jordan. So this will make the difference, actually. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, we'll ask Luca to comment if he wishes when he rejoins. In the meantime, we're very grateful that he's keeping you stable. I have to point out that, you know, it's a condition of the Holy Land, I think, both for the those in Lebanon as well as you in the Sardinian area, that it is often difficult. So we appreciate the lengths you're going to. I have one question, Lorenzo, before we move to Lebanon, is just how long the embassy has been in place in Jordan, and what it's like to establish a new position for the order.
Well, the order has been in Jordan since a while, but now, as Ambassador Khouri said, we want to be diplomatic, so we are pushing a little bit more on the programs. Yes, it was quite complicated to open an embassy with a big E, and so we. It's complicated. It's a complicated issue, and yes.
I think you're fortunate to have a colleague that you can work so closely with, you know, to so much an extent. I think that has been one of the key success factors in Lebanon as we move now to that area to discuss. You know, they have historically had quite remarkable relationships with those who the role of ambassador, whether it's to or from the order, or those from countries like France and Italy. And I know that so much of the reputation of our order rests with those type of relationships. So we wish you so much luck in and blessings in Jordan as you expand the footprint of our order, being driven from the work and the need, as you described, to our dear friends in Lebanon, who really require no introduction. Marwan is famous for giving credit to his great team, so it's not surprising to see him sitting shoulder to shoulder with Oumayma, who many of you know. She's a representative on the Order's Board of Communications. She's represented Lebanon throughout the world, along with Marwan, as they've described the enormous need there, but also the work that's being done. I'll also mention, before handing over the floor to Lebanon, we also have with us representatives from Malteser International, who are such a key and important player in this region, in the world, as they often are on the ground without an entity of the order by their side, and have been instrumental in other places like Turkey and Syria to extend the work of the order. So there'll, I hope, be a chance to also, as we carry on today, to hear a little bit more from them. I've also noticed that Grand Hospitaller has joined us, and hopefully, who is clearly an expert on far beyond my my knowledge on this region, and certainly especially with the work of the Holy Family Hospital. So we'll hopefully get back to all this in a moment, but with no further ado, I offer the floor to our dear President of the Association, Marwan Sehnaoui.
Good morning, good evening. It depends where you are, to all of you. And I suppose that you've been talking about the team. So I will, if you accept, I will have Oumayma beginning the talk. Definitely, please. Oumayma, yes.
Hello, everyone. So Lisa, I just wanted to thank you for hosting this meeting on the Holy Land. It makes a lot of sense that we are joined together, of course, with Palestine and Jordan, because at the end of the day, the importance of the order in this region, where the order was born and where our mission relies, obsequium pauperum and tuitio fidei, protection of the faith and service to the poor in a region where there's always a lot of turmoil for the past many years. So as Michele said, and as Ambassador Khouri said, and our dear friend Lorenzo, we don't need to go back to the main issues of the region. But if I want to focus on Lebanon, the presence of the order in Lebanon goes back to 60 years approximately, and we developed our main network of work, which is today around 30 different projects. It started mainly during the civil war in Lebanon in very rural and areas to protect the minorities present in the areas. Now, if I want to tackle for now the main subject, which is the COVID-19, how it impacted in Lebanon. Luckily, we were lucky enough not to have a big number of cases. To this day, we had approximately 32 deaths. But the problem of the COVID-19, honestly, today is the least of our problems, facing the financial crisis, the economic crisis, and a very strong social crisis that we are facing. So Lebanon starting an uprising, the people of Lebanon started an uprising back in October, and the crisis of the COVID just made everything go downhill very fast. But during the crisis, the Corona crisis, we never stopped one day our work. So we kept on managing our 10 primary healthcare centers and social centers. We, of course, doubled our work to be able to reach more people. As Ambassador Khouri said about the Syrian refugees in his country, we have approximately the same number, but on 4 million people. So approximately the third of our population are Syrian refugees, and they are living in informal settlements. So reaching out to them was very hard, and protecting them was the main issue, because if you can imagine that these people live 8 to 10 people in one tent, and these settlements, each settlement is like at least 200 tents. So if one person gets the COVID, you can imagine the disaster that could happen. So luckily, the national response was very good on that side. The municipalities played a big role, and us continuing and multiplying our works of awareness and prevention, mainly also in the camps, through our mobile medical units. So today we are launching 2 more mobile medical units. By the end of the year, we will have 7 mobile medical units. 3 of them are supported by Malteser International. And these play a major role today because they give primary health care, they give medication, they give referral to secondary health care, and also hospitalization for people who cannot afford to pay a penny. Today, the majority of the population is not receiving their salaries, as also our colleagues mentioned. They are facing very troubled financial burdens, since we have also banks restrictions. We are unable to get our money, so we are kind of being hostage in our own country. And to be able to continue working and continue helping the people is growing very, very strained on us. During the COVID, we have halted our 3 daycare centers for the elderly because, you know, they are the most vulnerable for the COVID, but we did not stop caring for them. We kept on visiting them in their homes, bringing them their medication, and continuing the program by reaching out to them. And of course, also we had to hold, as you know, many of you know the Shabruh project, where last year we hosted 1,200 volunteers serving more than 700 children and adults with very heavy disabilities. Mrs. Vorbeck, we were asking about the donation that you just did, the Swiss made for Lebanon. As per the request of your president, it's a fund in memory of Fra Giacomo, which we dearly appreciate. And these funds will go for the children that will not be able to come to the camps this year, but we are taking care of them in their psychiatric institutions. And as well as we miss our dear caravan. If you know the caravan, it's also a project where we have, last year we had 19 international volunteers coming for 10 months to Lebanon to care for the disabled in their own homes, but also they also go to university and get special curriculum. So holding these projects where these 1,200 volunteers come every year from 20 different nationalities of many associations of youth that are present here today is also, I will not say a burden, but it's very, very sad for us because they bring so much joy and love for our lords that we care for. To go back to the crisis, of course, we are facing a very difficult crisis, and I would let President Sehnaoui develop on this, but I would just want to point out something very important is that Lebanon is a country of 18 religious denominations. We are at a bridge between the East and the West. If we want to consider Christianity in this region, because after all, it is called the Holy Land, Lebanon still has the majority of free Christians living in this region, even though it is today becoming a minority, but we have a major role to play. And the order in this region, the order in Lebanon has a very, very important a message to convey, because we need to preserve Lebanon, that St. John Paul II called Lebanon is a message to the world.
Well, have I something to add to all this? I don't know. But what is clear is that the order is a huge instrument of peace, of coexistence, and of hope. The order is much more than we can think. Today, the world needs to bring to every man dignity, love, whatever his religion is. We have to respect all differences. And this is why today, the order in Lebanon is an example. Everybody refers to the order, because the order, since all those years, have never went into anything that looks like parties or politics or anything that could put the order out of his real function. His real function is the dignity of every man. And during this crisis, which is a terrific crisis for us, because today, just to give an idea, we need, if we take our local money, 4 times what we needed to buy the same dollar. And salaries did move, but were cut by 2. But here we are to say, by our engagement, and I want really to say that I'm very lucky. We're very lucky, because on the ground, we have a fantastic team, all working with heart, with strength, with courage, because faith is asking us today, in this land where Christ came, where his mother, Virgin Mary, waited for him while he was preaching. We can't abandon this country. We can't accept that this country won't be this example of mixing religions, because this is where and from where maybe the world will understand that we have to change the way we deal with the human beings. Up to now, even before COVID, the world was not going well because all was a question of interest, economics, and egos and things of this kind. Today, the world has to change. And the only element that can help the world change is love. And love is not a word. Love is an engagement. Love is the capacity to transforming by actions all over the territory, the capacity of saying, what are the values of love? We don't talk a lot. I do, but this is different. But the idea is that to develop our works. And today, while everything is going down, the order in Lebanon is just developing its works, as if it is a necessity to help our Christ holding his cross in this Golgotha time Lebanon is living. And today, proximity to people, get them the essence of their needs, just showing them that there is still a hope when everything is going down. And this is what the order does. It's a real engagement. The order is not a club. The order is a decision that we took in front of God to help human being with love and actions. And what is fundamental for us is that those who are holding this message are our lords, the sick and the poor who are suffering. So we transmit a message of love through the cross of the order, in being as well as in the churches, in the mosques, among Muslim populations, among Christian populations. There is no difference. They're all human beings. And this is where I think that the order, precisely because its sovereignty, has a capacity to change the world. We have to believe in that, not in words, but in action. Thank you for hearing.
Thank you, Marwan. I think it's a tribute to not only the work and history that the order has in Lebanon and your own very dedicated work, that you managed to take a situation that's so stark and so shocking and bring a smile to our face. The remarkable efforts. And I think I'd like to just make one clarification, as you and Oumayma are so close to the work. I think sometimes it's lost on those who aren't as familiar with Lebanon that all of those that Marwan and Oumayma refer to in terms of volunteers and international volunteers are all either members, volunteers, sons and daughters of members of the order. These are very much our confrère and our family that is working side by side. And I see Patrick Jabra, who is their chief in charge of Shabrua camp. I think, you know, we often refer to it as the leadership training for the Order of Malta, because they have managed to sort of attract an international group of supporters there and allow them to function and work and welcome all to be engaged in this desperate place. And I think, you know, in so many ways, it's a a model for all of us to welcome that our confrère. Thank you very much for those three very intense and overviews, and I thank you for being so conscientious about time. I see that we have a reconnection for Luca. So before going further and moving on with some of the other guests I mentioned, I would like to greet Luca Ravati and thank him for his stellar technical support.
Thank you, Lisa. It's been a pleasure. Thank you to you, and hello to everyone. Hello, Excellencies, which are connected. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm sorry I was not here before. At 6 o'clock I had another call, but now I'm here. It's always a pleasure to stay with you.
Good. We had a very excellent overview. Your dear colleague Lorenzo on the establishment of the work in that's being now carried out in the name of the order. When do you anticipate that you will be able to go back to Jordan?
It will be probably, I think, in August. So I think that in August everything can be opened up and we will be able to start the project.
Yes.
So it will be still a couple of months to go. Of course, it doesn't depend entirely on us, but it depends on the local authorities. But I think it will be clear by the end of August.
Very good. Well, we wish you a tremendous success. We know you know what the intensity of the need is there. Now, is the Grand Hospitaller still with us? And can I find Dominique and unmute him? I think we are, Emily, if you can help me unmute the.
It has to be your end, I think, Your Excellency, to, there you go.
There we are, there we are.
Thank you.
Not too quickly, not too quickly. So it's a pleasure to see you all, and a special hello to Marwan, of course, but to all the others. They are too numerous to be named. No, I was a bit late to come on contact because I had something which has nothing to do with the order, but still has a bit. As you know, before the death of our beloved Grand Master, the order was dedicated to the Sacred Heart of Mary, the Immaculate Heart of Mary, and the Sacred Heart of Jesus. Now, this also exists in different places in France. Everybody knows Montmartre, of course, the Sacré-Cœur. But before Montmartre, there are other sanctuaries in France, which, if you have an idea of the map of France, draw on the map the letter M as Mary. It starts by Lourdes at one end, and then it goes up to Pontmain, then it goes down to a little place called Pelvoisin, then it goes up to Paris, Rue du Bac, that everybody knows, and finishes in the south of the Alps at La Salette. Now I'm going to talk about Our Lady of Pelvoisin, which is a very, very small sanctuary, but linked to my family. And I was a bit late today because I had to rush down because a few days ago, the conference of the French Conference of the Bishops have declared that they were going to present 3 cases of beatification. One of Anne-Marie Antigo, another one of a child called Caron, and the third one is Estelle Faguet. Estelle Faguet was in my village, and she was a maid at home quite a long time ago now. But if there's a sanctuary and a monastery, it's because we built it. So I had to go down because it's such a fantastic event. It doesn't mean that we'll get to the end, but it's something important. And I saw a link between the fact that under the goodness of our Grand Master Fra Giacomo and also the presence of Monseigneur Lafitte, there's this link of the Sacred Heart of Jesus at Our Lady of Pelvoisin, and the fact that the order was put under the protection of the Sacred Heart of Jesus and the Immaculate Heart of Mary. Now, just to say all that means that I fully understand how important it is in Lebanon, and Marwan is always the first to remind how it's important that we are not just doers with our hands, we're also doers with our heart, and it's this specificity which is the one of the order. Yes, we had it in February, just before this pandemic, when everything was locked down, we had this strategic meeting, and yesterday we had the General Assembly and the board meeting of Maltese International with Maltese International Americas, reminding this meeting where quite a number of you who are online were present, which was to try and get together to see how all together we can have a better impact in Middle East. Of course, the heart of it is Lebanon, because that's the breathing heart, the pulsating heart. There's the other heart, which is the Holy Families, the birthplace of our Lord. So it's Bethlehem and all this region, which is very difficult. And now we're expanding. We're expanding around to Jordan. And I see that Lorenzo with Luca have done a fantastic work in such a short time, with also a little event which had been also done by the Grand Priory of Rome. So there's a high interest from Italy to this region. The expansion to, of course, Iraq and Syria. And Syria, the pandemic and the lockdown stopped progress on this, because in February, we had realized the second visit into a hospital called the Hospital Sehnaoui. The Hospital Sehnaoui, there are several hospitals called Sehnaoui in Middle East. You have in Jerusalem, Sehnaoui. You have in Damascus. You have in Aleppo. And we were working with the Sisters of St. Joseph of the Redemption, working to get together to help this hospital to get back to the standards where it was before. And it was also a way to show that, as it's a rule within the order, we are on no sides and we help everybody. And so this was important, knowing that Maltese International had been a lot with the refugees, and rightly. But we had also to think of all those who were suffering, let's say, on the other side of this war line, especially in Aleppo. And so we have this fantastic hospital, which suffered a lot, functioning at hardly 50% and needing an upgrading to become again, not only one of the best hospitals of Aleppo, but also a hospital for the poor and for the poor, those who can't pay for it. And there was a blessing to have this opportunity. Of course, it's a bit slowed down, but now that we have done our first visits with technicians, professionals, we are going to be able to set out a good layout to go forward. So I think in the coming years, thanks to these two strongholds, which are Lebanon and the presence of the order in Lebanon and also in Palestine, I think we can go forward very strongly, working all together. And that's really the key thing, working together. We thought at this meeting held in Rome, which was a fantastic meeting because, well, I see some are smiling because they were there. We discovered a lot of things, things had not been said or not been known. And it finished at the end that everybody was very willing to go forward. So let's hope and thank the Lord to help us to continue this work, this fantastic work, which is, of course, so difficult in this situation, not only of the COVID-19, but of all the political issues that we have now in Middle East. You must imagine, we're very comfortable here in the West or in the States or even in South America, even if it's very difficult. You must get into mind that now people are starving. They've lost their jobs, they're not paid. We had this example given from Lebanon. It's the same thing in Palestine. Palestine, the political lockout, en plus the open prison of the situation which has been on for now 50 years, plus the pandemic. I thank all those, and I see that Michele is following, and she's really struggling to make so that everybody pays its part of the music. And I can say that within Bethlehem, where the jobs exist only if there are pilgrims, and there are no more pilgrims at all, that means all the hotels are closed. Well, the only hospital which is paying their staff, even if we have done a discount on their staff of 18%, is the staff of the Holy Family Hospital. Nobody is paid. In the state hospitals, nobody has been paid for 6 months. So this situation in Lebanon, terrible situation coming up now in Syria, where you have seen, like in Lebanon, the value of the local currency has just dived, and there are more and more sanctions. Of course, I understand political sanctions, but what I don't accept is that all these sanctions fall on the people, and they fall on those who are really in need. So I think we have to clear our attention. We have to continue to help all those who are active. It's not now when it's difficult, even for us. We must continue to support, to develop all the projects we can. And my dream would be that in a couple of years, we could have a very strong network throughout all Middle East. Thank you very much. I was a bit long, sorry.
Thank you very much. I know there's a couple people who would like to get in. It was such a beautiful wrap up, but I'm going to go back to the floor for just a moment before. I know Ambassador Morabito had an intervention to make.
Thank you. Thank you, Lisa. Not an intervention, just a few words. Thank you for organizing this meeting and for putting together Jordan and Lebanon. My message is clear. The Christians are leaving the region. If the Christians leave the region and they go to Canada, US, Australia, they will never go back. And if the Christians leave, there will be less stability in the region, because Christians are, especially today, an element of dialogue between Sunni and Shia. And Christians are work like the Order of Malta in Lebanon shows, work for every community, for different community, and with people from different communities, which is very important. That's why what the Order of Malta and Maltese International are doing is very important, extremely important for us. And that's why all the Levant, which means Lebanon, Jordan, Syria has a war lasting since 10 years. Iraq are all countries which are interlinked. Has been called the Meeting Room. The Meeting Room has a great success, but we must go on with this with the same commitment of the Aventino overall. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. As I predicted, we could have easily filled a session for each of these topics, but I hope that this gallop through the Holy Land has helped focus our mind on not only the incredible need, but also the amazing work that's been established in the name of every member of the order, and deserves our commitment and support. these are called the reports from the front line, and I don't think that there's any more intense a front line than the ones that you are operating on there. You have our love and respect and deep gratitude. I'm very proud that the Global Fund for Forgotten People will be next week announcing our St. John's Day grant round. We will have given, as of this round, 446 grants to work of the order, which is humbling and astounding to report to you. Amongst those in this round include the Holy Family Hospital, Jordan, and our dear partners in Lebanon. You can count on us to continue to do so. More than anything, I think this session demonstrates the amazing talent that we have throughout the order. I very much appreciate all of the interventions, and as I said at the beginning, we will be coming back with different topics, but also diving deeper into the ones that we've introduced today.